Yes, let us begin with the new unit that is generics in Java. Um, so, in any case, whenever I need anything to be implemented, if I have a generic thing available, it becomes much convenient because I need not write it every time for different data types. Okay. For example, if I want to print an array, okay, I just want to call a method for printing the elements of the array. Uh, Normally, till now, how you have written in case of Java, you take C, whatever language, programming language you take. Normally, we write the return type, we write the parameter types, okay, and that particular function will work only for that data type. Okay, suppose I have written a function for printing the elements of the array, which are all integers. Okay, so what I will do, I'll pass in the parameter uh, telling int array. Okay, so int space array of some size, and inside the function I will write a code to print the elements of that integer array. Now, if I want to use the same function to print the elements of a character array, if I want to print the elements of a string array, suppose if I want to print the elements of all the different arrays at a time using the single function, can I be able to do that? It is impossible. Okay, so there is type, data type available once you made it available, that remains constant throughout the whole of the program. Okay, this is the disadvantage of, may I know who has unmuted? Okay, so this is the disadvantage of a program which doesn't have what is called as generic. Okay, now let me begin with this brief introduction, and let me go ahead with what is called as why generic is used, what is the need of it. Okay, today we will be discussing about what is generic and why it is needed. Okay, and one example I will give, with which I will be ending this session. Now let me just go ahead. Okay, Java generics. Now, when I talked about writing a single function for different data types, okay, so this is what is meant for the generic usage. You have two ways of understanding. Either you can make sure that you are writing one function or one class for different data types, or you can think in this way: I am making sure during the compile time itself I am calling this function on this data type. So I can call it as type safety. Okay, I can call it as type safety. Just 1 minute, I have to pause for a while. I'm so sorry. Hello, hello. ನಾನು ಬೇರೆ ಹಲೋ ಹಲೋ ವಿದ್ಯಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಎಲ್ಲಿದ್ದೀರಿ? ನಂಗೊಂದು ಹೆಲ್ಪ್ ಆಗಬೇಕು, ನಂಗೊಂದು ಪಾರ್ಸೆಲ್ ಬಂದು ತಗೋತೀರಿ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಪ್ಲೀಸ್? ಅಯ್ಯೋ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ನನ್ನ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ. ಹಾಂ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್, ಓಕೆ, ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು. ಹಾಂ, yeah. So I was talking about whenever I write a single method, that method is useful for different data types at a time. This is one example where I can talk about a generics in Java. Okay. Right now, you just don't bother about the things that I have written over here. Don't worry about it. Okay. This speaks about generic usage, how I'm using. In fact, this you have encountered in JavaFX already, okay? But I have just overcome or overruled that thing which has appeared in the programs, okay? Now, why these generics are so important for me? First of all, I talked about at the beginning itself, you will tell that I'm utilizing this for this data type. Either you can specify it very clearly, or you can tell that I'm writing it for all the different data types. So there is a clear cut mentioning of what kind of arguments you are passing. Okay. So this is called as type safety in Java. So type safety means I cannot call that function which is meant for some other data type. Or say for example, I have created a function that accepts a tree as a parameter. So tree, when I talk about any data type of tree can be made available for that. So on a bigger version, when I talk about a generic function or a generic class, it leads to what is called as type safety in programming. This is first advantage of generics. Okay. Now, so the second advantage is there is no need of what is called as typecasting. There is no need of typecasting every time, because during the usage, as you have seen here in the example given below, during the usage itself, you will tell that I am utilizing this particular linked list for strings. So when you are talking about specificity, then also generics is helpful. When you're talking about generosity, then also it is useful. Okay. And the type checking happens at the compile time. If you postpone the type checking during the runtime, the cost will be more. Okay. Suppose you have spent around 5 minutes of time already running the program, bigger application. At that time, it will give you an error. There is a type mismatch in type. That is a big difficulty that you are facing during the running of an application. In order to avoid that, generic helps you to tell at the compile time what is missing where, what data type is missing where. So these are the advantages of generics. One is called type safety. At the beginning only you can decide, okay, I'm talking about this kind of data type. And when you are talking about generics, there is no meaning of typecasting because it works on everything. Okay. Then the checking happens at the compile time itself. See guys, at this point, you will not understand the meaning of these three. Okay. On every line that I have written, I will be showing you a program. Okay. Now, how these are talked about, how the generics is implemented. Generics is implemented based on a technique called erasure. Okay, it is called as erasure. What is this erasure? I talk about, uh, okay, have you used erasers when you are writing? Definitely you have used. Okay, that eraser talks about, I want to write this, but I had written this. It is as good as you write one box, okay, one generic data type you write. That generic data type can be erased and filled with the data type that you want during the runtime. During the runtime. This is called as type erasure. So you will be writing one class or one method. See, generics can be a class as well as a method. If you have a generic method, you have written a method, that method will be written with a generic data type. That generic data type at any point in time can be erased and written with the data type that I want. It means what? Formal parameters are generic, actual parameters are specific. This is what is called as type erasure. Even you can have a whole class acting as a generic class. So the whole class can be bounded by a generic data type. That generic data type can be replaced as and when used by a specific data type. Okay. Today we will be discussing about what is generic method. In next class, I'll be talking about what is called as generic class. Okay. Now, when you talk about what is this type erasure called, type erasure is mainly, it is useful for me to have a boundary or a specificity When I want to have a generic data type, that generic data type has to be replaced by a specific data type during runtime. That is done by type erasure. This technique is called as type erasure. I hope this is clear. I hope this is clear. Please let me know. Please let me know.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, it is clear? Okay. So, how these are useful? Okay. Mama, ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಯಾಂಟೀನ್ ಕಡೆ ಇದಾನಂತ. Okay. Okay, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, no problem. Yeah. Okay. How do we write these generics? Okay. Let me just go ahead and show you one example. Just have a look at this. When you want to write generics to a function, this is how we write. In the square brackets, I have written access specifier. What is this access specifier meaning? Access specifier, when I talk about, it is either public, protected, or private. I have written it in square bracket because it is optional. It is not mandatory every time. Some functions may have, some functions may not have. Then, if access specifier is there, that is followed by angular bracket. What is this angular bracket? This is a pair of brackets which specifies the data type. What that data type? It specifies the generic data type. Okay. What are these types when I talk about in generics? See, I can have different type parameters written in generics like this. Either I can mention capital E in pair of angular brackets to represent any element. Any element. I don't know what data type element it is. I can specify it as capital E to tell that anything that comes in is an element. What is its data type? I don't know. Okay. So this is a much more generic type parameter available in generics. The second talks about n, which is trying to tell capital N whenever I write in pair of angular brackets, it means that this function is written for what data type? Only the numbers. That number can be integer, it can be float, it can be double, it can be long double. Whatever the different number types are there, no, all come under this capital N. Capital N indicates any number type. Okay. And when capital E I write, I'm not specific about any data type here. It may be, E can be an integer, it can be a character, it can be a string, it can be a vector, it can be an array, anything it can be. Okay. So this is the most generic type parameter available. When I write capital N, it is specific to only number data type. Number data type can be int, float, double, long double, etc. Okay. Then I have a specific example. Okay, have you heard about hashing? I think in data structures I have talked about hashing. There I talked about key value pair, correct? I talked about key value pair. So this key value pair will come only in hash map, dictionary, all those things. Okay. So this K indicates key, V indicates value. K and V are useful for me only when I am using such kind of data structures like hash, dictionary, okay, hash map. So any such kind of data structures, if I'm using, I'll be using these type parameters. Otherwise, they are not useful for me. Okay. There is one more generic type parameter which I call capital T, which I call capital T. If I write between the pair of angular brackets capital T, it indicates what? Any data type. It can be of any data type. So in general, when I am writing a generic method or a class, if I write capital T in angular brackets, that capital T can take in any data type. Similarly, capital E if I write, I talk about any element of any data type. Doesn't matter. But when I write capital N, it is specific to numbers. Similarly, you can write capital U, capital V, capital Z, any capital letter indicates a generic data type. But make sure that the capital letter that you have used between the angular brackets, that same capital letter has to be used everywhere in the function of the class. You cannot alter that. Okay, so this capital letter, whatever you write between the pair of angular brackets, that becomes the generic data type. Any doubt here at this point? Any doubt here at this point?
No, ma'am.
No. Okay. Now, I have written the same thing over here. It talks about in the angular brackets, angular brackets, whatever you write, they are called as parameterized class or method. So, I told in the beginning, generics can be on method, generics can be on class. So, the whole class can be made as a generic class, or a method contained in the class can be made as a generic method. Okay. So if I make, what is the difference between generic class and a generic method? When I make a generic method, only that particular method is available to different data types. If I make the whole class itself as a generic class, then all the methods that are contained in the generic class will also be generic. So more than one method can be made generic by making the class generic class. This is what is the difference between the two. Okay. Now, when I talk about generic method, I always write generic method associated with angular brackets. Normally, I use capital T or capital E. Only when I don't have, when I don't have, when I don't have a specific data type like number. Okay. So even you can write, okay, let me go ahead to this example. Even at a time, this can be written as something like this. Just have a look at this. Capital E, comma, capital T. So when I write more than one generic type parameter, it means what? Capital E indicates any data typed element. Capital T indicates a second data type. So it means what? A single method can allow more than one generic data type at a time. It means what? For example, you take like this. There is a method, there is a method which talking about find reading the n number of elements of the array, okay? N number of elements of the array and print the average of all the elements in float. The average must be of type float. So it means what? Average is of data type float. I'm fixing that. I'm fixing that. So at a time, you can pass more than one data type. So how you can pass? You can pass comma separated list of generic type parameters. One method or one class can accept more than one generic data type parameters. Okay. Let me read out. I think Prarthana has written one message to me. If we make a class generic, we need not make the methods inside generic. It will become generic automatically. Okay. She has a question like this. If I make a class generic class, does it mean that the methods all that are contained inside the generic class are also become generic methods? Obviously they will become. But there is an added advantage for the generics. See, I have made the generic class over, say, a type parameter capital T. Imagine I have passed the type parameter capital T to the class. It means what? The type parameter capital T is available for the three methods that are available inside the class. Okay. Now what happens? The second method, it is accepting more than one type parameter at a time. So the second method, it can write its own type parameter along with classes type parameter. It is similar to method overloading. Overloading. What method overloading tells? Method overloading tells that, or class overloading when I tell, the, the class that is inheriting the upper class, that particular class will take all the things, all the properties of the base class. Along with that, it can add its own. Similarly, a method inside a generic class can add its own generic type parameter along with the class type parameter. I hope, Prarthana, I have answered your question. Okay, thank you. Now, based on this whole introduction, let me show you one simple example on how do you use this generics. Okay, so let me just go ahead in showing you the first thing, that is main. What is that main method it is doing? Main method, it is trying to declare three different arrays. Just have a look at the main method that I have written. Okay, it is trying to read, or it is trying to take in three arrays at a time. What are those arrays? Guys, before I continue, have you come across this kind of writing data type? Please let me know. Capital integer, capital I followed by integer, double character. Have you come across this? Please let me know. Ramya, you are right. It is called as wrapper class. But have you come across this? If not, I will I will just give one or two statements on this. Then I will continue. You have not. Okay, you haven't used it. Okay, let me talk about this. Then I will continue. Um, do you tell that Java is 100% object oriented? You cannot. See, if I want to declare an integer, how do I write? I will write int a equal to 10. Correct? Int a equal to 10. Suppose if I want to declare a double, I will write a double or char, okay, char, say ch equal to a. Now, if I want to access a or ch, how do I access? I will simply write um, okay, I will simply write something like this. Correct? This is how I access A or CH. Whether this line or these lines, are they object oriented? Are they object oriented? Please let me know. Are they object oriented? What is the meaning of object orientation? Anything and everything that you call must be called with an object of that particular class, correct? But in this case, A I have declared so normally. And when I try to print A, I'm printing it so easily, casually, directly. This doesn't make Java totally object oriented. See, making object oriented programming, that is not our aim. What is our aim? How do I encapsulate? How they are encapsulated, how they are protected. Okay, if I throw them out like this, if I make these things public, okay, if I make these things public, they are available everywhere, so anybody can access it. In order to avoid that such kind of changes that are to be done, I will encapsulate that. How do I encapsulate? I will make them work inside the class, and if anybody wants to access that particular variable, that variable has to be accessed through the object of the class. So only if the class allows the accessibility, it is based on the privileges given to the class. Okay. If access specifier of the class is private, no one can access it. So it is merely for the encapsulation, is totally for the protection of the variables or the objects that are associated. If I throw them out like this, they are accessible to everywhere, and everywhere they can be modified. In order to avoid that, I want to make them wrap around so that they can be accessible only through the object, not otherwise. In that direction, if I want to go for, then I will replace this int by what is called as integer. Okay, this integer, can I write it like this? If I write it like this, it doesn't actually sound good. How do I write it? Integer a equal to, I will write it like this, new integer. Okay, then what I will do? Now I will write with reference to a. This a is an object now. Object of what? Of the class integer. of the class integer. So I want to make everything encapsulated. I want to protect, I want to wrap them. I want to make Java 100% object oriented. Only for that, these wrapper classes were introduced. Wrapper classes were introduced with the intention that Java has to be made 100% object oriented. Okay, so now these are integer, capital integer, whatever is written over here. This is a class. This is a class. So it can be instantiated, and that instantiation is done over here. It is done over here. So this whole line, it is nothing but int array is an object of class integer which stores 1, 2, 3. Is it a normal object? No, it is an array of objects. How many? 3 elements are there. So 3 objects are there. Okay, this is the background behind writing capital integer. So it is a wrapper class, not a normal data type. Okay, now with that, I have created 3 different arrays. One, so such how many wrapper classes are there? Even you have Boolean, okay, whatever basic data types are there, all of them are having equivalent wrapper classes. How many basic data types are there in Java? Please.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
ma'am. Java.lang only contains na all these primitive
Correct.
data types.
Correct.
So Java.lang will be the wrapper class, no, ma'am?
Java.lang is not the wrapper class. Integer is a wrapper class. Java.lang is a package.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Ankit, any more questions?
No, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
No. Okay. How many basic data types are there in Java? Can anybody comment? How many basic data types? 6. Can you name Prarthana?
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yeah,
Hello?
it is 8. 8. Okay. All
got
those
missed
are
it.
wrapper classes. All those have a wrapper classes. Okay. So these wrapper classes are just to have basic data types converted into what is called as object oriented data types. Okay. Only with that intention the wrapper classes were introduced. Then using these wrapper classes, I have created 3 arrays. One is integer array, second is double array, third is a character array. And I have initialized them with equivalent values. Now what I want to do is, I want to print the elements of these arrays using a single function. So what is the name of the function? Print array. Look at this. I have called the same function on 3 different arrays. Is there any modification in the function name? No. The same function I have called 3 times but with 3 different data type parameters. What is the data type of first parameter that I have passed? Integer. Second one contains double. Third contains the character. So this is what is generics. This is one advantage of generics I am discussing here. Okay. Now, in the same class, I have written a method. Okay. Just pay attention. I'll be covering this line by line. Now, I have written this public static. It is just the access specifier that I had written in angular brackets, in pair of square brackets. It is optional. But if you want to write any generic method, that generic method usually will be public. And it has to be static because I don't want to create any object for that function, because it has to be generically available and I can access it through that function very easily. I need not bother about creation of an object. And that is a secondary question. It has to be static because Every time the new time I call the function. 3 different times I have called the function. All the 3 different times, the related stuffs have to be done independently. That's why it is static. Any modification is done, that modification has to be updated for the next iteration. Okay, so generally, generic functions or generic methods are made public and are made static. Static is optional again. Okay, making public is optional again. If you want to make sure that that particular function has to be available everywhere, you make it public. Otherwise, it is optional. That's why I have written that square bracket for the access specifier. Okay. Then before you write the return type of the function, I write the type specifier. Okay. How I have written this? In pair of angular brackets, either you can write capital T, even you can write capital U, even you can write capital Z, but what you mention here, that has to be reflected everywhere. Everywhere the same named type conversion type has to be there everywhere. Otherwise that will never work, because it is a placeholder. Whatever I write in between the angular pair of angular brackets, that is a placeholder for the data type that is coming in. This capital E, whatever is written, it is a formal parameter. It is just a placeholder similar to the functions. It's just the placeholder. So once you type whatever capital letter that you type here, single capital letter you have to type, that capital letter has to be used everywhere. Okay, please keep this in mind. Then I have used here capital E, indicating every element in the array. Okay, then the return type, then followed by the name of the function, opening common bracket, only one parameter. What is that parameter I'm passing? Just have a look at this. I'm passing the name of the array. I'm passing the name of the array. Name of the array has a type. What is the type of this array? This array's type is integer. What is the type of second function called? Double. What is the type of the third function called parameter? Character. Can I write over here, if I write something like this? Normally we had written up to now this kind of functions. This kind of functions we have written up to now, correct? If I write integer there, it becomes a specific function, a specific method. But now I want to make it a generic function. How? I will replace that data type with capital E that I have supplied as generic data type. Any doubt in this line? Please let me know now only. Any doubt in this line? Please comment quickly. Any doubt? Yes,
No, ma'am.
yes, thank you. Now, what I have done, I have written before the beginning of the function header, where the function header is beginning, from here. This whole thing is function header. Okay. Before the beginning of the function header, I will write the type parameter. This is called as formal type parameter. And once I write this formal type parameter, the same thing I have to use. Okay. Now, instead of writing specific data type, I have written the type parameter. That becomes the placeholder for the incoming data type. Then this is the name of the array. It can be anything. It is any valid identifier. This we have done n number of times. Now, inside this, what is that I have done? The second line of the function. Over here, for loop in generics is generally used in this manner. Okay. Instead of writing for I is equal to 0, I less than ni plus plus, if I write like this, I is equal to 0, I less than ni plus plus, I should know the size of the array. Size of the array can vary. See, you cannot specify that I should have only n number of elements. In order to allow an array containing any number of elements at any point in time, it can grow and shrink at any point in time. In order to have that kind of flexibility, I have a different variety of writing for loop in Java. Other than writing initialization and termination condition, increment, decrement, instead of writing that, I can use the for loop like this. What is that? Capital E, every element in the input array. How do I write that? Look at the way I'm reading. Every element, capital E, in input array. This is how we read it. Okay. Every element renamed as capital E in input array. Okay. Every element of type E, or I can read it like this. See, the ways in which I'm reading, just have a look at this. Every element of type E in input array. For every element of type E in input array. This sounds much better, correct? I will read it again. For every element of type capital E in input array. Okay, this is the way I write. For every element written as element, you can write ELT. This is alias name that you will be using throughout your function. Okay, throughout that for loop. Alias name, capital E will be held by the data type. That every element after it has extracted, it has to be stored somewhere. That storing is this element. So this is aliasing for every element after extraction. Instead of writing A of 0, A of 1, A of 2, it is written as element every time. Element is a placeholder which has exactly one element at a time. Okay. Of what type? The same data type that is mentioned here. So if this capital E receives integer, so this, I'll go to the first function call. What is this? Int array. Int array is of type integer. So when it goes to this formal parameter, this E gets replaced with integer. Obviously, this E will be of type integer. Over here, this E will be replaced with integer. So every element in the integer array from the input array. I hope this is clear for you. I hope no doubts. Please let me know.
No doubt, ma'am.
No doubts. Thank you. Now, for every element of type E in the input array, what I'm supposed to do? I'm simply printing them, because this is the first example I'm taking on generics. I've simply printed it. Nothing else I'm doing. In the next example, I'll be working out something on those elements. Okay, we will see it in the next class, not today. Now, what I'm doing? I'm just printing that element. What you have to print? Can I print capital E? If I print capital E, what capital E contains? Can anybody comment quickly? What capital E contains? What capital E contains?
Ma'am, it has the data type of whatever the array is
Correct.
passed.
Capital E indicates the data type. So can I print capital E? No, you cannot print capital E. Instead, what you have to print? You have to print the element. Can I print input array? If I print input array has more than one element. But when I put something in for loop works element by element. You cannot pass the whole input array at a time. Correct? So even this is not possible. Even this is not possible. Then what I am supposed to print? I am supposed to print the element, single element that is extracted. Where it is extracted? In the alias name that is given. So for loop is written like this. Over here, let me write for type alias name colon source. This is one more way of writing the for loop in Java. Okay. If you have learned the container classes, then you would have encountered this. But I doubt that you have encountered any of the container classes. Please, all of you note down. When I'm taking, yeah, it is similar to for each loop, Ramya, you're right. When I'm taking examples in generics on hash map, on dictionaries, I'll be covering what is called as container classes. Okay, one class I'll be taking on that, then I'll be continuing with generics. Okay, that has what is called as for each loop. The for loop becomes for each loop in generics. Okay, this is how you can utilize. I hope the general syntax is clear for you. Over here I've written the general syntax of for loop. It has type, space, the name in the alias, colon, source from where every element has to be extracted. Okay, and then I have simply printed that. Nothing else I have done. Any doubt at this point? Let me run this program and show you how this will work. I'll just enhance the screen. Is this visible? Or you want to make,
ma'am.
yeah, it is visible now. Okay, you can just see with a single function call or single function writing, I've called on 3 different arrays. It is working same, no change at all, no change at all. Okay, this is the advantage of generics. Now please concentrate what modification I'm doing. What I will do now is, let me write this capital N and let me make this capital N. Now can it work actually everywhere? Please let me know from your side. Can it work now for every input that I give?
Ma'am, for character array, it won't work.
Correct. It will not work for character array. Okay. So let me just check this. It should not work on character array because I have given it as capital N, that is number. Yeah, it is working fine here. The reason for that, I'll tell you. Any capital letter, I'll just go back to this. Just look at this line. Any capital letter indicates any data type. This is for my understanding. Capital N is for number. This is for my understanding. Okay. It is only for readability. Please don't misunderstand the use of capital N and capital E. Don't misunderstand that. Any capital letter can indicate any data type. So even if I write capital N here, it is working fine. Reason for that, capital N compiler, Java compiler doesn't know capital N is for number. It is for my understanding. Okay, it is for user convenience. But otherwise, any capital letter can be taken as a data type. Okay, just have a look at this. I will just modify now. I'll make this capital A. I'll make this capital A. Okay, I'll save this now. I will rerun this code. It's working. Any capital letter that you specify in pair of angular brackets, the same letter has to be used everywhere, wherever it is applicable. I hope my point is clear for you. Any doubt at this point? Okay. Yeah. So based on this, please concentrate on writing similar kind of examples. Okay, Ramya, I think you have commented, but I'm unable to see that comment. Can you just unmute and let me know? Somehow that chat box is gone. Ramya, can you unmute and ask your question? Okay. Then you can call me and ask the question. Because that chat box is not visible over here. Okay. Yeah, I hope today's class is okay for you. You have understood the
Ma'am, she's
introduction
asking,
part? Yeah, yeah.
ma'am, she's asking about key and value. Like K is for key, V is for value. That's what we understood, right?
K and V when you use, it is for user convenience. K can be replaced by A, V can be replaced by Z. Okay, it doesn't tell you that you have to use this capital letter only. It is only the user convenience, something like universal standard they have made. Whenever I write capital N, that works for only the numbers. It is for my understanding. Okay, but actually any capital letter can be used as type parameter. This is the conclusion. I hope I have answered your question, Ramya. Okay. Any other question?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, usage of capital letters is not for our readability, right? It is a hard and fast rule.
See, if you write a capital N and you tell that it works only for number, that is wrong. That is wrong. Okay, it works for any capital letter, but it should be between
But
a
it
pair
has
of
to be a
angular
capital letter.
frontals. Pardon?
But it has to be a capital letter.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah. I hope there are no doubts in this introduction. Okay. Tomorrow I'll be taking a bit more complex examples where more than one data type is there. Okay. I think directly I have class on Thursday. So no more doubts. Shall we end? Because I'm left out with only 1 minute. Okay. I think I have not unlocked the meeting today. I'm sorry for those who had joined late. They couldn't join. I didn't pay attention for that. I'm sorry for that. Anyways, the video will be uploaded. The previous video I have uploaded